You have to be uncomfortable because the customer's always going to want something maybe you're not already thinking of.
Right.
And as you innovate and strategize and build towards, meeting the customer need and the future customer need, that means that you have to have a little bit of a layer of discomfort there.
Welcome to Micronetbd Podcast. We have our honorable guest today with us, Ron. Ron, would you like to introduce yourself and tell our viewers a little bit about your background and about yourself, basically?
Well, first off, thanks for having me. It's nice to reconnect with George after several years. My name is Ron Resavy. I'm a senior customer support success operational leader that's been around for a while in the customer-facing roles. And at this stage of my career, looking to help others and advocate for the customer experience. So
that's amazing. And George, as likely, if you want to introduce yourself again, one more time to our audience.
I'm George, CEO of Micronet, but I'll tell a little bit about Ron. So one of my background where I would say professionally I grew up was Billtrust. It's everyone knows that. And at Billtrust, one of the senior leader, Ron, who help the company get from small company managing small number of clients to now it's $1 billion company. That whole transformation and process, the guy behind the scene, I've seen him be such an awesome leader to so many people. So many people learned and so many customers love this guy. Maybe someone like him you don't see at the front, but from someone who basically grew up professionally at Billtrust, I can say there's no one better. I would ask any questions about client services or how a business can successfully grow client services than Ron Resavy. So I'm glad we are here, have you to talk about, embracing AI in client services and how a company can grow their client services. He has done it as a small company and now $1 billion company, and this whole transformation and dealing with major customers, small customers. So I'm glad. Thank you for coming and joining our podcast. It's an honor.
No, he's truly my PR man at this point, I have to say. But I'm humbled by the attention. It's the topic is important to me. That's right. what I've cut my teeth on from a career standpoint. But George has always been a great partner. It's great to see him having success with this company, and I'm happy to be here and talking to you.
As I was talking off the camera, George always speaks very highly about you, and he always puts your example in front of us and always talks about you. So he understands that the value of giving customer support and client support from you, and he talks about it all the time. So give us some insight about your experience, about your that highly stature that George has put you in. Give us some of the closures about that, so that we can also learn from it. Ron, please.
You set too high of a stage for me here. Listen, the customer is the center of the universe for any business, right? So to build around the customer is important, to make sure that you're focused on their needs, to understand what they want. There are a lot of tools to do that, and sometimes we get a little crazed with what we can offer our customers and maybe overwhelm them, where there are very fundamental needs that still exist today, regardless of all the fancy tools and things that we can put in front of them. Customers need to be heard. They need a forum to do that, and they expect timely and accurate responses. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's just customer support reactively. It could be any part of the customer-facing experience. But it's incumbent upon leaders like myself and others within the customer-facing space to understand that. And at each company, with everyone has different needs and different user experiences, it's important to be able to lay that out and then, drive a strong discipline.
Awesome. Any question from your side, George?
Yeah. So I remember there was a phase when every company, not just Billtrust, goes through a chaotic phase, right? From a client services perspective, and then gets mature. I think as a smaller company, we also have gone through some of those pains, especially when you're growing, adding a lot more clients. You have to get a button down a lot more. Like there was a time at Billtrust when we'll have an issue, in the morning. By midday, we have come up with a solution. By afternoon, code has been written. By nighttime, it's been deployed, done, client's happy, right? And then we came up with the CAP process, right? And where everything had to go through a process. So a one-day work became 2 weeks, right? So companies go through that type of transition where we want to instantly support the client, but at the same time, that causes a lot of disruption.
Right.
But then too much process, right? We're kind of going through the same phase where we're growing, adding a lot more clients. Before we didn't need too much process. We can just get things done. Now I realize we must have a process, right? We're putting together formal processes, how things are done, how clients are managed services, clients are serviced, how implementation projects are run, right? Kind of have those segregations of project management versus client services versus implementation, right? You are kind of involved in all those growing points, not just to build trust, but also you've seen large brand name companies that interacted with Build Trust, a lot of Fortune 500 companies. So can you talk to us a little bit about what do you recommend for companies at our stage that are growing and maybe didn't need too much process? And that's what clients loved about us is they can quickly get things done. And they always tell us we go to like large vendors, Salesforce vendors, by the time they get the process together, it's a month or 2 months, we're done and deployed and everything's done by that point. I realize also as we're growing, we can no longer be as fast maybe, but we have to have some process. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so before I answer that, I'll give you 30 seconds of my background coming from Merrill Lynch back in the day with a very large enterprise financial service organization. Albridge Solutions also was bank owned at the time that I was in there. It was smaller to large and all of a sudden big bank. So that was also fintech. It was wealth reporting fintech, and then Build Trust was is end-to-end accounts receivable, and very much in the fintech space. More or less a hybrid solution though too, because there are some services as part of that. So to your question, the big thing for companies at your stage, I think that there's a stigma sometimes with CS that. It's the cost of doing business, right? And it's overhead. But if you're going to do it right, I'm a firm believer in making the appropriate investment, right? You have to invest in it. If your customers are important, you need to put it out in front before you'd ever consider it to be a commodity and things that it ultimately reaches in some cases. And I'm on a mission to prevent that and maybe be the world advocate of it's not a commodity. But you have to be smart about how you spend. So as you're growing from small to large, and like you said, you have customer support, quote unquote, but you could play a lot of different roles. Not only are you reactive technical support, maybe you're doing a little bit of relationship management, maybe you're doing a little bit of professional service, smaller project work, any other type of success function. And so you have to know yourself, you have to plan where you're going and what might be the lines of demarcation between the roles and responsibilities, but you also have to invest wisely in it. And it's not just invest grossly and spend on it, but you do have to spend some time thinking this is an important part of our growth because our customers are ultimately going to have need, especially as a small company, they're going to have needs, right? And they may be custom needs because you're going after customers to bring in and grow and maintain. But the big thing for me is being smart about your investment and not being afraid to invest there, where maybe the textbooks say otherwise.
That's a good feedback, Ron. So kind of leads me to the next question is talking about investments. So I know like you were a big advocate on creating Salesforce-based solutions and putting in the right apps for the right solutions, right? At the early stage, talk to us like how the solutions in your experience for client services have evolved since when you first embraced Salesforce Service Cloud to where ultimately it went to under your control.
Yeah, so in the early days, again, coming as we call them, right? The early days, you're driving, you're growing, you're nurturing the business, you are muscling a lot of stuff. Everything is very manual. Right. You're putting a lot of mustard behind it. You have people playing, again, multiple roles, and being able to operationalize that and find your path and becoming comfortable to say, okay, I trust the process to be able to move from somebody doing it to having an app or an automated process take that over. And not necessarily saying job replacement and things like that, which can be part of the conversation in a scary way. It's how do we move forward and make sure that we're complementing what we're doing. We're not impacting the customer experience in a negative light, but at the same time, we're growing that operational scale, which you need to be able to invest wisely and to be able to spend monies in other areas that you're going to need them as well. So I think that if you're able to embrace and know your business, that's the most important thing. Know your customers, know your business, know their needs, know the level of support you need to provide to them, then you can come up with an appropriate plan. But in the early days, again, it's not easy making that shift mentally as a leader, because you're saying, well, I had two really good people doing this. They know it so well. And what happens if I begin to automate this a little bit? Is the customer going to be upset? You need to be able to have a little bit of trust in that process.
Great. So, Ron, again, coming back to George was asking initially. So, how you used to manage the entire process of the customer service at this point of time? Like, compared to the beginning days of yours and now, like George was saying that when the customer wants things to be run very fast pace, however, our quality things, right? We have a process in place where we cannot George said okay, we have a customer reporting some issue, and in the morning we got the issue, and by afternoon we created the code and that has been deployed and customer is happy. Nowadays it's not happening like that, obviously, right? We need to test it, it is taking the process in place, and it takes multiple days. But then some of our clients wants to be happening, they cannot wait that long. So in that scenario, what do you think, what is the difference in the old days and now? And in case if that scenario comes in, how do you think that, we can tackle?
Well, it's an interesting question, because I think that the tolerance to wait for something is decreased a lot.
A lot.
Right. So my early days, it was pretty straightforward. Financial services, on the phones, supporting financial products, investment, working with end users, that kind of stuff, or investors rather. And as I moved into financial services, into fintech, and the speed of need was amplified. Yeah. Now, if you're talking to an investor and they're saying, my account's supposed to be up, $100,000, and you're showing them I'm down or flat for the what's going on there?
Yeah.
That there's an urgency beyond that.
I like that.
Yeah.
If that happens, I like that.
Yeah, maybe we've talked in the past. I don't know. You sound like a savvy investor. So the urgency has always been there, but from something needs to be technically fixed. So if there was a problem, back in the day, going back into days where maybe things took several days to maintain, into this window now of it needs to be done right this second, otherwise my business can't thrive. It's tricky. I think that with customer support, I see us as the center of the universe. I see us as a culture of customer advocacy across all of the entire company, not just within our own world. So when we're getting feedback, one of the things that made us successful is creating that feedback loop such that we can create common goals with other teams, such that development, product, so that when something would come in and a customer's unhappy about it, now obviously it's unrealistic to fix everything every day, at every minute. That's not where I'm driving. But your system of prioritization, your ability to build partnerships with entities internally that need to have partnerships so you can thrive and be more efficient, common goals, common threads, and common customer goals. If you want an NPS or a customer satisfaction score, and development is on the hook for that, as well as the customer-facing teams, we've done things like that. So when you have that shared unity in terms of the end goal for the customer, I think you're further along. Some companies can commit to it, some can't or don't, or are resistant to it. But we did a good job building relationships so that everyone knew, where we're going with, whether it be more strategic, larger customers, right down to the smallest, what the priorities were, and sharing those goals together.
Yeah, great. And here, customer relation is trust and belief that goes side by side on that. And with the trust, with what we have the trust, customer has to trust us, and as well as we have to trust customer, and the responsibility what we take has to go side by side, and that's where we achieve the goals.
And that's where it comes back to your question about customer experience, and I said investment. If you're not giving them a good experience at the front door, it doesn't take much more than one time, especially on the business to consumer side, for a customer to say, I don't like it. I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
And they abandon a channel, or they abandon a way to work with you, or abandon you altogether. On the business to business side, it's more relationship based, so they may have a little bit more of a tolerance to say, we're not happy, but they're not necessarily going to leave. But you don't want that to become a trend.
Right. That's what we want actually to see, that, we don't want to, a customer say that, we are not happy. I mean, obviously, our target is always to keep our customers, our clients happy all the time, whatsoever it takes. Yeah. So, but then sometimes they'll say, okay, we are, but then we have to have the control on that. We don't want to go into that situation where customers or clients say that, okay, we are not happy. So from the day one, we want the customer to be happy all the way. So that is where we are going and, finding people like you, getting their experiences on the customer services, how in these critical situations, how your experience is, so that, we can learn something out of it and, implement that to our clients.
Yeah, and it's a combination, right? Hiring is still very important. You need to have the right people.
Right.
You need to have the folks that understand the business and that can help drive the strategy. So from the top of the food chain to all the doers that are the most important part of it. And then you complement with the technology.
Right.
And you bring it in and hopefully you find that appropriate balance and pairing.
Right. So what you mentioned, that building the relationship with the customers, that is actually very important for the B2B kind of businesses like us. It's really hard to actually make B2B customers unhappy. You need to do some real extra things to make them unhappy. They are not like regular other customers who get unhappy on maybe you don't give them $1 discount, they get unhappy, right? But the B2B businesses, you need to do something very extra to make them unhappy. That's why the customer relationship is very important with them. Sometimes what happens, even though you have done a great, tremendous job, just because you didn't have the relationship with the customers, you maybe didn't collaborate enough, you maybe didn't talk enough. They have given you orders, you have given them the services. If you have only that relationship, I don't see it going that long. You still have to have some kind of extra relationship beyond that, giving orders and getting services done. So that's why the collaborations, talking to them time to time and meeting to them time to time in person, I guess those also create a very big impact building the customer relationship with the B2B businesses. What do you think about that, Ron?
No, I agree 100%. If you're talking about the product, you can have the best product on the planet and it can self-run for forever and ever, but if you don't have that feeling of touch with the company itself, that could be a risk, right? So that product that's beloved for so long and it's maybe evolved a great deal, then it pauses for a little while and goes on maintain mode for a bit, and you don't hear from the customer or from the company, that could be a risk, especially if your marketplace is very competitive. Right. Similarly, if your product is a service, you have to have every fundamental of being communicative, being proactive, and all those wonderful characteristics that make services important. Meeting deadlines and creating expectations. You have to fulfill all of those. But so product and service are same but different. But at the end of the day, the fundamental is still you need to touch.
You need to touch. Yeah, that's what I also saw in our company as well. Whenever George actually comes up and has his touch with the customer, he comes up and he talks to the customer. Customer gets really happy because they feel like someone from the very high official is actually taking care of them, talking to them, and giving what they want. Even though we do it all the time, every time when George comes in, George steps in and he gives his support, that makes them extra, something extra that makes them more happy than if we give them the whole service all the time, right? And from there, I saw that we actually secured more managed services clients than just giving them, services all the time and just, meeting the deadlines, doing everything they have asked us to do. You still need to have some touch, some, collaborations and some physical meeting, even like some, just kind of, building relationship. So George does that really well. And yeah.
And I try to not be as involved, because I've seen for example, I've seen Flint, back in 2013, right? Every single big deals that we're working on, he would be personally involved, right? And he would be involved with our sales teams and get involved. Maybe he'll go on site sometimes, right?
Right.
And those made such we could say that from a technical angle, same thing, when Flynn talks about it, people are like, oh, listening, right? They'll have the awe factor.
Well, I think too, if you really care about the customer, then, I'll say for myself included in this, you have to be uncomfortable all the time. Right? The moment you start getting comfortable with your customers in terms of, I don't need to worry about them, they're good, I haven't heard from them a little bit, I'm not worried, they're not complaining, that could be the most deadly time for the customer relationship when you don't hear from them. So that's why the proactive touch, and coming from the reactive support environment and the proactive success world, and there are moments to touch a customer with value. They don't want 5,000 emails every day of all your fancy products or services and all those things. There's a moment for that. Hopefully not 5,000 times, but you have to be uncomfortable because the customer's always going to want something maybe you're not already thinking of.
Right.
And as you innovate and strategize and build towards meeting the customer need and the future customer need, that means that you have to have a little bit of a layer of discomfort there, because once you get complacent, that's a problem. So.
Right. Sometimes that discomfort is actually comfortable for the business.
Don't take everything for the granted.
Exactly. Said another way. Exactly.
Don't take everything for the granted. Sometimes when you go more comfortable, and probably you'll miss the basic stuff to do fulfill the services for that particular client. And at the end of the day, you realize that you did not do the service because of this take it for granted kind of thing, and it can upset the customer.
Now also the competition is very high. Customers have many options. They are not going to be just sticking with you if you don't build that relationship and don't actually get in touch with them time to time. I had many clients under my management. I do the project management of many clients, and I get really happy when someone is not knocking me, not emailing me. I feel like, okay, they are in a good spot. They are not talking to me. I'm good. And I also don't talk to them. I'm like, since they are not talking, I'm not going to be talking. That means there are no problems. But George always comes at me, and every time, you have to just give them a call and ask them, if they have anything, or find out something and let them know, hey, you may have this issue. I'm seeing this issue by digging your org, just, let them know that you are actually looking after them. You just don't stay and be like, they're not knocking me. That means there are no problems. It's never the case. When they're not knocking you, that means potentially they are maybe looking for someone else in that meantime, right? So you always need to be in touch with them.
And what happens is they don't realize all the things we're doing in the background, right?
Right. They never realize that.
Managed services provider, and we're protecting them from a lot of things. And so if we get too comfortable, we're doing our routine work, right? It gets too routine, and they don't even realize at some point, it breaks up because companies, guess what? People change, new leadership come in, they have no idea.
They have no idea what's going on. We also don't know what's going on from their side as well, right?
Yeah, and one of the stories I can say is back at Billtrust is clients, normally outside sales team was the majority of the revenue driver. Before a certain time, we didn't even think of client sales. But then sales started coming in, right, through all the client rep like Val and Tom Scott and everyone. And then that became a huge sales department itself, like selling to existing clients just by helping them. And that's what Tom and these guys did really well. And then that became a major revenue driver, right?
I'm going to come back to something you said, which I think is pretty important. You go through a lot of different inflection points, especially as a high growth company. Mm-hmm. So you have to embrace and adapt. And I think Billtrust did an extremely good job. I think they still do a very good job at that. Yeah. You talked about kind of the competitive landscape. Mm-hmm. So many marketplaces at this point have a lot of the same business types. They may do something a little different, but all of a sudden they're adding on. And Salesforce is maybe a good example of it, right?
Right.
They CRM, but they do everything else too, right? And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And you do your core really well, and as you grow, maybe you start doing track 2 and track 3 pretty well too. But the competitive landscape out there, if somebody's using your product, and they have another competitor doing part 2 of what you're doing, what if you don't have the same type of engagement that second company has, and all of a sudden they're taking over your primary responsibilities too from under your nose, and that's the danger of it. Right. That's the danger of being, especially in the SaaS space, right?
SaaS space. Our next topic is AI, George.
Let's
dig into that.
So that's where I was going is with now we have, from a customer service perspective, we have the companies have case system, companies have knowledge base. Now you have Slack channel. Some people are using Teams channel, right? People are also sending text as a case. That becomes a case, like the omni-channel concept, with so many points of entry and so many different directions people are coming from, and so many ways you can service clients, and so many technology integrations people are doing. It becomes a kind of a challenge for long term to train the new employees, right, and keep up the client services going. That's why I think we are seeing a lot of embrace of AI. But talk to us a little bit of so many different entry points for client services and supporting them, and an expansion and kind of crazy expansion of extreme number of channels. Like you talk to clients on Slack, case system, phone, email, text. Tell us a little bit about your perspective on that.
What is this AI you speak of? It's getting all the pub these days, right? It's the fashionable way. So, when we're talking here, it goes back to what I was saying before about investment, right? An investment isn't just dollars and cents, because for the current state of AI, there's still an investment, right? And you can have omni-channel, you can have a million multi-channels, you can do all of that. George, you said it best. It can be overwhelming to the customer, right?
Yeah.
Which of your 15 channels do I pick? We all want convenience. The customer wants convenience. On the inside, we want something that's efficient. We need to be scaled, so that our team is able to use the technology and support the technology, or the channels that are out there for your customers. And if they're overwhelmed with it, you're just going to ball up the system, right? And
Right.
It's not going to be a good investment. You're going to waste money. It's going to be inefficient, and you're going to upset your customers most likely when you have too much. So I think you have to be choosy. We've been choosy. We've been deliberate over the years. The last 10 years have been predominantly B2B. So again, there's a little bit more of a tolerance with customers. B2B is a little bit slower comparatively in terms of embracing technologies.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it doesn't remove us from putting our best foot forward. If there's a demand for mobile, there's a demand for mobile.
Right.
If there's a demand for having a chatbot somewhere, and that really understands that what the customer is asking, and it can be done, but then by all means do it. But don't just have it just to have it. Just because someone else has it and is using it doesn't mean that it matches your business.
Right.
So I think we get so caught up. You go out to conferences and Dreamforce and all these things, and there's a million different options, and they all look great. And you have too big of a tchotchke bag that you're carrying home with all these different companies, and you may realize when you settle down that, okay, I need to be focused on what is going to impact our customer the best. Right. Do I have technical conversations that maybe a chatbot doesn't match today? Then you have to ask yourself that question. Yeah. Do I need to put a different front community out there, or a knowledge base for some of the simplified questions, or do I need to connect our proprietary platform to a tool? And these are all questions. Everybody's different. So I think we try to apply it in one big broad brush, and it's just not that. Every customer experience, while we have some of the same tenets of speed and accuracy and convenience and those things, there's many, many ways to get there, and not everybody's going to take that same path. So you just that's where you have to know your business.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. So I think what you're trying to say, if I can summarize that, what business problem you're trying to solve,
exactly.
Right? I think what's happening is people are looking at all these tools, right? AI generated, you add AI to the knowledge base. Salesforce is rolling out Einstein GPT. It's an excellent product and could be the perfect solution. But a lot of times people are looking at the solutions instead of asking themselves, what problems are we trying to solve, right?
Right.
If you put the solution ahead of the problem, that's not being a good architecture. Right. You have to think about, okay, what is the business problem you're trying to solve? And then, okay, these are all the tools we have in the tool bag. So yes, as a Salesforce architects, we can look at the business problems. We can say, okay, based on your problems, we think we can solve this by, maybe you have a huge knowledge base and no one can really utilize it properly. Okay, let us help you index it. We'll put Einstein GPT, and now you can talk to your knowledge base, right? That may be a perfect solution.
Right.
Or you may not need that because your clients are happy and you don't see a business problems. You don't see any business problems coming in next 5 years. So no point of buying the shiny tool just because it's there. Right. So we have to be smart. Ron is absolutely right. Of use the right tool. You don't want to take a tank and to blow a door.
Right.
Yeah. If it's not like, AI is now like, happening now, it doesn't mean that, not every business solution is end up with AI. Probably we might not need it. I mean, obviously now it is widely used, but we might not be able to. I mean, it depends on the business specific, as you said, George, very right.
But that is AI from client's perspective. What do you think, Ron? Can AI be a potential threat for businesses like us?
I'm not a future teller, fortune teller. The pundits would say that there's going to be an impact, or there's already been an impact, right?
There is.
I don't think anybody argues with taking some of the monotony or the redundancy out of the jobs. I think everyone likes solving complex problems and having the human touch on and the engagement on that kind of thing. And the big question is, can and when, is AI going to be able to do all of that? And I've had some recent interactions with AI and some of the vendors I use, and they weren't great. And it was a complicated progression of inquiries that I had. It was with some telecom, but it wasn't. You go into a chatbot, and it's not all about chatbots, obviously.
Right.
But
many other things.
I drove into it, and all of a sudden, I was so frustrated I couldn't even get to anybody to talk about something that needed to be escalated from the beginning. You've got to create the right avenues, and it's almost like you have to have an out button somewhere or a safe word. It's like, okay, once you're not going the right direction yet, I need to be able to eject and get down the path, because you're creating that frustration, because there's still the human element to it. There's always emotion involved with it. Back to your question, though, I do think that there is a future for it, and I do think it's going to continue to progress and get into the more complex. But at the end of the day, you still need the human element to build it and to maintain it. So I think, is it going to take away jobs? Potentially in some areas, but I think it's also going to add maybe in others. And so there'll be a balance, like everything else, like every new technology that comes along. There's always been a balance, right?
So it has to be balanced. Like I tell, like whenever I do call a customer service, and obviously I have to go through this AI stuff first. But first thing I ask the chat, agent. I need to talk to the agent rather than I just drop all the questions.
We have a lot in common.
I just say, like, I need to talk to the agent. I know what I need, but then I know that the AI is going to end up in nowhere, which I already gone through that in the knowledge articles or whatever it is. Basically, what I want is an agent. So rather than me answering all the questions, I simply say that I need to talk to the agent, a real agent. And that is one of the example, but then there is a positive side also. As you said, it gives a lot of solution. Yes, definitely, it is doing good business too.
I think on the business side, where the frustration gets created from a client service perspective is a lot of companies are using what we call logic-based responses. That you ask a question, based on that, it gives a response, and based on your response, it asks you another question. That's not AI. But then some of the companies are branding it as an AI, right? It's just if-else kind of AI is when you have a large language model like GPT-4, etc., where you're actually chatting in a natural language. It's understanding and able to go search and give a response back. Majority of the B2B tools that I see in the chatbots, none of them are using it.
Logic-based.
They're all doing logic-based, and they're calling it AI. And as a result, it's creating a lot of frustration.
Right.
If they're using a real AI, large language model, you may not even realize you're talking to a non-human.
Right.
And I don't see that being embraced. And by branding something that's not an AI, a lot of frustrations are getting created among customers. And I think companies need to get smart about that and call it what it is. It's a chatbot that's a logic-based. It's not an AI.
It's not an AI.
If you're using AI, then say it's an AI. And this is why a lot of vendors are kind of tricking their clients.
Right.
Yeah, I think the hype is almost outpacing the need in some cases, or the use cases, and it's going to progress. It's going to get really, really, really good. It's really, really good in some areas today, and it's not as good yet in others. So it's like anything else. It will build, it will get there, but it's not. I don't know, all the way that maybe you hear in the news or the publications at some point. So
right, they exaggerate it too much, but yeah, it's there. But like what George mentioned, that is also very true, that we are actually using the logic-based system, calling it as AI, and all the frustration on AI is coming from that, because like last time when I was talking with one of our legal clients, they don't want to embrace that. They were like, I don't want to embrace the AI chatbot. I want to have it in a normal way. I just want to have it like, hi, hello, that's it, just get the number and get done with it. I don't want to have the conversation with the client, because sometimes what happens when a client calls me, maybe a PI client, right? He's gonna be calling me and be like, hey, I'm into an accident, I need a lawyer. And if you just throw a number like, get this number and give a call to this agent, that's not the empathy or the sympathy I was trying to show to that client, because she got into an accident or he got into an accident. He needs some kind of, human touch to it. Hey, are you hurt? Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. Do you need any kind of assistance? Did you there is some human touch to it. So he's like, I don't want to embrace that. But the thing that George mentioned, that is actually the logic based system will do that, hey, this is the number, get that, give this number a call, this is the agent or whatever. But if it is AI would actually do that. Those things that AI would be asking this question that, are you hurt, or like some kind of empathy and sympathy. AI is now actually showing it with the ChatGPT, and it's there. It's still not like 100% there, but it's actually going there.
And that's that balance between transactional, the logic based, and the empathetic, like you said.
Right.
It's once you pair those, then you've got it. Right?
You've got it.
You could do it today without having it, like you mentioned. But it'll keep evolving. And
right.
I'm
it's going to keep evolving.
Certain of it.
Few places where I want to bring up specific examples, like whenever you're writing client responses to a client's question or request, right? That or you have an email come in and you want to respond to them, or a case that came and respond to them. So being able to research that topic and write a response back, that use case. Also in sales too, there are some use cases where historical knowledge base could potentially help write a response automatically before a human actually sends it out. So what I'm trying to say is there's a use case where I think, and correct me, I don't know your thought on this, where some people are talking about, okay, I get a lot of emails from clients and with many questions. What if you train the system on all my legacy emails with every client? Based on that, it learns the patterns. And then when a new email comes in, it reads it and auto writes a response. And it's not going to send it, but it's going to have it for you ready. So kind of enhance and make you faster, basically. That's where I'm seeing a real good possibility of initially embracing AI just to make your work faster instead of client interactions in the chatbot. What do you think?
So first, I don't think there's ever going to be an AI that's going to replicate your sunny disposition.
Sure.
So first off,
yeah,
maybe someday.
Robot George.
No, that's where we're going. I mean, I had some recent experience with this. We were doing some internal incident management RCAs, and we let ChatGPT run with it, and like, this is pretty good. And it did a nice job with it, and it felt pretty natural. There were a couple little minor errors, but it was impressive based on the complexity of what we were needing. So I don't think we're far away from it. I think that there's definitely an efficiency coming there. The embrace and the trust, and that, if you're going to say, okay, we're going to turn it on today, are you going to trust all the emails that it's responding to going out? It depends on, I guess, what inbox you're looking at. But it's arriving.
Yeah, I think step one probably would be just to have the response ready. Don't send it out. Have a human review and then send it.
Then human will be so lazy they won't be even reviewing it. They'll be just pressing the send button. That will create the same.
Okay, when we roll it out here, I will make sure you don't get the tool.
That's more.
I'm just going to be sending. I'm just going to be sending it.
It's more manual intelligence. I don't know, artificial.
Right. We are almost in the end of the podcast, George. If you have anything to add, you can add, or even Ron, if you want to ask anything to George.
Well, I just want to say again, I'm appreciative of having the forum to come in and meet with you and talk through things that are very near and dear to my heart.
Thank you so much.
I can't say enough nice things about George, although he said I have to catch up a little bit because he said too many nice things about me before. But it's great.
That's all true. I mean,
yeah. Well, thank you. But it is great to be here and talk through it. I do like conversations like this, and if you ever want to expand it, I'm happy to be part of it.
Awesome. Yeah, we will be actually having many more other plans regarding having more episodes coming up. But George, if you want to add some stuff, and we can just end it here.
What's your impression of Micronet and the office and What's your? Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, well, so far, we're about an hour into it at this point. First word that comes to my mind or phrase is pizzazz. It's got a lot of pizzazz. It's got a lot of color. It's got a lot of bright. I think that your employees look happy. They look mostly happy. They're very happy, right?
This is our free lunch time right now. That's why we are happy.
Okay, so everyone's really happy. Yeah. No, it was very welcoming coming in. There's a lot of, you could tell it's a progressive office and one that really focuses on the employee with all that you showed me with the rooms for parents or having families, and just in the way you embraced me coming in here, you could tell it's a close, tight-knit, great place to work. So.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. It
I'm
is, Ron.
impressed.
Really appreciate you coming here and sharing your knowledge with us. And we are actually, I just came to this field not that long ago. George actually brought me here. So I'm actually very, very honored to have someone like you, learn from you. And yes, I would like to actually expand my experience and know this field way better than I could ever. And I guess I'm very blessed to come in this newly generated time now that AI and all these things are evolving, coming. It made my job way easier, trust me. Otherwise, I would have really hard time managing projects. So AI is helping me, and AI is doing things that could not be done before. So our topic was today regarding evolving with AI. What is AI is going to this tech field, and I guess we understood a lot from you, your thoughts, your insight regarding it, and that's pretty much it. Anyone else wants to add?
No, we're good.
Thank you so much, and yeah,
Thank you, Ron.
it's
Thank
been
you,
pleasure.
guys.
It's pleasure.
Thank you.
It's pleasure to
Been a
have
pleasure.
you
We
here.
can end it here
And
now.
it's nice to meet you over here. And thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ron.